Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Warrior online programs powered by Vidyatan. And today we are talking about storytelling. Yes, storytelling is an art. And talking about the elements of storytelling are going to give us immense information on what is storytelling, how we do, and what is the need of storytelling. So we are going to, enjoy this session with specially conducted by Ms. Amita Sarkari ji. Ms. Amita Sarkari is a passionate storyteller. Ms. Sarkari with her two friends, Nidhi Agrawal and Rekha Samal, started Stories and Beyond 6 years back as a storytelling and reading platform. Stories and Beyond actually gave her a big platform to showcase her talent and recognition. She has been telling stories since her childhood and always tried to narrate the story in a way that her audience not only enjoys but lives the story. So, the art of storytelling and the elements of storytelling will be covered by Ms. Sarkari. Ms. Sarkari, welcome to Creative Warrior online programs.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much.
And storytelling is actually an art. When we see even sometimes a small kid will come narrate a story, it takes you to their world. Sometimes as an adult also we want to tell a story but we don't know, like an instance. So it's actually an art. So we are ready to learn it from you.
Sure.
So all over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pooja, for welcoming me and giving me an opportunity to share my ideas for storytelling. So, good morning, all, and I am Amita Sarkari, and Pooja has already told you about my Stories and Beyond thing. We started the Stories and Beyond some 9 years now. It is so 9 years back, and we three of us, Nidhi Agrawal and Rekha Samal, we thought of an idea. Then why don't we teach kids through stories what our grandmothers and grandfathers used to do? Storytelling had become was becoming obsolete these days because the children were more into the gadgets and the other things. So वो रात में बैठ के नानी और दादियों का स्टोरी सुनना वो सब हमने किया है, बट हमारे बच्चे ये सब चीज नहीं जानते थे. So we thought that why don't we start telling the stories, and this was the beginning of Stories and Beyond. Then we also noticed that along with the stories, and see, stories not only for the kids, stories are meant for everybody. Even at my age, suppose if somebody tells me a story, I'll always be looking forward to it because everybody likes to listen to the stories, and stories never get old or obsolete, and even the old stories are liked more. And whatever lessons are being taught to you through stories, you will always remember. So I would just browse through my Stories and Beyond thing, and let me just tell you something about what we at Stories and Beyond do. So, as Pooja said, I'm a storyteller and even a phonics trained teacher. So here in Stories and Beyond, I do storytelling and we teach phonics to the kids also. And we have kids from 4 to 14 years. So now in our Stories and Beyond, the mission of Stories and Beyond is 21st century skills. Here, the Stories and Beyond runs a program by the name of Raise a Reader, which is an after-school learning program for the age group 4 to 14 years. And we aim to cultivate 21st century skills in the children through reading. Yes, then 8+ years of research. Our product is built on 8+ years of research, and in collaboration with language development experts and American Learning Analytics company for 30 years. A to Z reading approach. Yes, we have a skill that we teach through A to Z reading approach, and often are often difficult to teach in school curriculum, because the teachers don't, even if they want to teach something extra, there's no time, there's a time limit for them. So that is why we thought of taking something extra what the school is not giving, and this will enhance the lifelong significance and application of the children when they grow. And finally, the lifelong skill sets and mindsets. Yes, we aim to build skill sets and nurture mindsets through the super skill of reading and cultivate lifelong learners at an early age. So this is what we aim at Stories and Beyond. So this was just a little snapshot of Stories and Beyond, what I wanted to share with you. Now we come to the elements, the elements of story. See, you can have many stories, and you have heard also many stories, but how to tell a story or how to weave a story is an art. Yes. So there are few elements which are the main elements of storytelling. So the first element has to be the character. So the main element is character. Character is very important, and the choice of the character should be that the reader feels something for the character. Like you should take a very normal character like a boy or a girl or a woman, through which the audience can link themselves. So this is very important, because unless your reader feels something for the character, they won't care what happens to them, and they will not read. So this is why character is the main thing around which the story revolves. And in all good stories, it's important to have a solid character. Yes, you should have a very powerful and very nice character with a very good morals and all. Choice of the character also depends, keeping in mind the audience you have. Yes, it is very important when you weave a story, or when you tell a story, or when you write a story, you should always have the audience in mind, that I'm writing this story for the age group like 7 to 8 years. So there you have to choose the character accordingly. Like if you're writing a story for a 4 years old, if you write an animal story for them, they'll enjoy more, because they have started knowing the animals, they've started knowing the forest and everything. So they'll be connected more. So this is how the choice of character completely depends on the audience that you have. Characters are the elements who are living in the story. Yes, like our life. The story also should be lived. And when you live the story, the effect of story is immensely very nice. The people who are being affected by the plot, who has motivations, traits, personalities, weakness, fear, and who takes action based on the psychological traits. These are what is you mean by characters. These are the elements whose action depend on the flow of the plot. The characters have to be well defined, and yes, it has to be consistent. This is very important across the entire story, because the audience will only believe, empathize with the character if they can deduce their traits and can relate to them, and able to see the justification behind the character's action, why the character has taken this action and why he had thought of it. This has to be justified by the character's characteristics. This is how the audience will be able to build their trust in the character. And once the audience starts liking the character, they'll be enjoying the story more. The second point that is very important for the storytelling is the plot. Now, what is a plot? What actually happens in the story is the plot. The plot has a beginning, a middle, and an end with a realistic storyline. Your character will help the plot move naturally with realistic dialogue. Unless there is a good basic story, it is difficult for the character to spring to life, and the readers won't keep reading. The plot is the most important part of Any story, yes. It defines what the story is all about. A simple plot is all that is required to build a good story. You know, there is one thing which is very important, and what the plot, see, the story should be guessed by the plot described. Suppose I'll just tell you a plot of a story, and then you have to guess. This is a very famous story written by a very famous author who writes story for the children. So it's a story about a mouse who just went for a stroll, and he got three, four very wild animals who wanted to eat him. And he just made fool of them by just creating an imaginary character that I'm going to meet that person, and if you want to eat me, you will have to take permission from him. And he just created an imaginary character, और उसकी धमकियां दे के he was going ahead. And finally, you know what happens? He meets such a character. When he says, oh, I'm going to meet an animal who has black tongue and orange eyes and a what on his nose. So he actually meets that person. So what is the story? If I've told you the plot, you should guess the story. And yes, the children of today will definitely guess the story. It is the story of the Gruffalo, written by Julia Donaldson. So yes, by just expressing the plot, or by telling you the plot, if you are able to guess the story, that is the winning point of the story, that your story will be liked. And so when you weave a story, first is the character, then comes the plot, then comes the setting. Where does the story takes place is the setting. Yes. So don't take settings too weird, like, oh, there was a jungle far away or where, whatever. Just take very simple settings like our house, or you can take a school, because your audience will very easily imagine about that setting, and then he'll be able to understand the story well. Suppose there is a story of a tiger who came to tea. Yes, there was a tiger who came to tea, and the story took place in the house. The tiger came and sat on the table. He went to the kitchen, he opened the cupboard, he opened the fridge, and he ate and drank everything, whatever there was there. So now your children, when you're telling the story, your children can very well understand the setting of the story. They can, because everybody's house has a kitchen. They always go to the kitchen. They open the fridge. They know what all things are kept in the refrigerator. They also know what is there in the cupboard. Mama stores what all things. So their imagination runs when you tell the story, and that becomes real. And that should be the effect of the story. The audience should live the story. This means that the audience is living the story. Instead of the character, they place themselves. And they think, oh, one day there's a knock on the door and the tiger comes in my house. And then I offer him cookies and I offer him so many things. And still the tiger is hungry and goes into the kitchen. So he will imagine everything. So that is the effect of setting. And you should always, setting is very important, but it should be kept very simple according to, again, the audience. Yes. And then comes the next is the theme. Theme is what you take away from the story. So you should have in mind what you want to teach your audience through the story. So what is the main storyline about is the theme. What is the feature of that? What is the feature of that remains in your mind after you stop reading the story? That is the theme. This underpins everything else that's going on. The way you structure your content is one of the elements of good storytelling. if you are unable to organize information properly and present it to the readers, it's easy to understand. And suppose if you're not able to convey your story properly, or you're not able to communicate the story properly, then you risk losing them to those who communicate better. So it is important of theme. It is the importance of theme cannot be understated. It has a great influence on the way the plot is being perceived. Surroundings of the story gives direct support to the character traits, and gives an opportunity for the audience to understand and underlying motivations and fear. This also enables us to reuse the plot and character in different stories. Yes, you can have many stories on the theme that you decide, because there are many stories that you can weave on the same theme. Then there is another point which is called conflict. Yes. So now, audience, till now we have discussed about the importance of characters. Yes, characters are very important in the story. Then the plot, then the setting, the theme, and finally the conflict. What is a conflict? The conflict is the problem that the character faces. Like the story that I said, the fellow. So in that story, the mounts, when he was going, he kept on meeting one after the other, the animals, and they wanted to eat him. So how did he overcome that? He had to make fool of them, but still he should have something in mind. So how did he overcome that conflict? Suppose if you are telling a story of a prince who was lost, or a princess who was lost in the jungle, and how did she overcome those difficulties and then came back to her palace? So this is what is conflict. And finally, we come down to the conclusion. Yes. So the conclusion is that the story has to be very good, and how you tell the story, if your audiences are happy and if they remember your story, that is the winning point of yours. So that means your story is effective. So your audience, always remember one thing. Whenever you start with the story, whenever you tell a story, always keep in mind your audience, what they will enjoy, what they will learn. So even this was what, like for the children, if you tell the stories, you should keep the characters in mind. So what the selection of story is very important. So these were the elements that I discussed with you: the characters, the setting, the plot, the theme, the conflicts, and the conclusion of the story. So weaving a story is an art. So let's play something. I just want you all to weave a story. I'll give you a few, excuse me, is Pooja there? Pooja, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So Pooja, should I just involve the audience for the story weaving activity?
Yeah, sure. They can answer in the chat, and I'm there to read them for you.
Yeah, no, I'll be just sharing the screen and I'll show them the points, like what character they have to take, what theme they have to take. I'm giving you few things, and
Sure.
then they have to just like, can you see my screen, everybody?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
there is a prince who's the character, there is a creature who's a frog, the place is the castle, the theme is helpfulness, and the magic thing is a book. So let's weave a story, and this story, looking at the points that are given there, looking at them, can you weave a fairy tale? So just try to do with these elements, and let's see how you can weave a story. So I'll just give you 5 minutes, and then we'll share the stories with each other.
Sure. So everybody can have their story written and we'll read them.
Yeah, if not written, they can just weave it in their mind and they can tell me, including all the points that are given here. And not necessary that you should start with the character or with anything or with this. You can start with the frog also.
Yep.
So yeah. So Pooja, I would like to ask you if you have weaved the story and
Well, I am not really a very good storyteller. I'm pretty bad at that. But
but I
can.
I'll help you out. But looking at these 5 points, you must have thought of some stories.
Yeah,
Some
one
fairy tale you remember.
no language bar.
No,
Right?
nothing.
You can
You
also
use
write
any-
it in the Hindi, English, whatever.
Yes.
Any language.
Any language.
I'll,
Only that I want a good story out of you all.
So if I'll go by it, I think I'll say there was a helpful prince living in a castle. Once upon a time, he went to a library and got a book which described about a life cycle of a frog.
Very nice, Pooja. Very nice. But that was a very good story, but very straight story. Just including all the characters.
Pretty bad on it.
No problem, but I appreciate that you've tried this. And this is what my kids also do in the class. So, yes, when I ask them to weave a story, they just weave it like this because just they have to include the characters. So anybody else, can I ask if anybody else is?
I can read. Let me quickly check who all have written here. Okay, so one message I've got says a helpful frog was trying to take care of a prince in a castle. Okay. I think mine was, it's kind of a straightforward.
Okay. So I'll tell the story now. So I'm also weaving it present. I mean, at this moment only. I have not weaved earlier. So let me just weave the story. That once upon a time, always remember that story always starts with once upon a time. So once upon a time, there was a prince. He was a brave prince, and he liked to go on hunting. So one day when he went for hunting, he went too far off in the jungle and he lost his way. And he sat there for a nap under a tree. Suddenly, he saw a frog jumping there. So the prince was just talking to himself, oh, I'm lost here. I'm so hungry. So suddenly he hears a voice, oh, why don't you go to a nearby castle? There is a princess. And if you go there, you will get everything. So the prince looks here and there and he says, oh, who's this? Who's talking? Who's talking? And then the frog from there jumps and says, it's me. It's me. I'm telling you, go to the castle. It's just nearby. So the prince, he says, oh, thank you. Thank you, frog, for helping me. And I'll go. So, but while go, just before he went, the prince said, oh, frog, why don't you come with me? Come, we both will go. So he picks up the frog and he takes him also. So when the two of them goes to the castle, there was a moat You know what is a moat? The water which is surrounded on the all sides of the castle so that the enemies don't come inside easily. So there was a moat, and the prince had to just cross the moat. But before that, there were so many soldiers standing there because it was not easy to go in the castle. And the frog said, "Hey, prince, there's a beautiful princess inside. And once if you go inside, it's a bet for the king that whoever just crosses the moat and fights with my soldiers will has to marry my daughter." So the prince said, "How can I just marry a princess without looking at her?" So the frog says, "Okay, okay, wait. I'll jump and go and tell the princess to come on the window and to wave you. You can see that, but I can tell you that the princess is very beautiful." And the prince says, "Okay, go." The frog jumps, and the soldiers doesn't see that it was a small frog. And he goes into the palace. He goes to the princess' room, and he tells, "Hey, princess, hey, princess." And the princess was very surprised. "Oh, who's talking?" And then she sees a green frog there. And she goes, "Oh." And the frog says, "Oh, don't get afraid, don't get afraid. I'm here. Your prince has come to take you. You know?" And the princess was surprised. "Huh? How do you know?" "No, he's standing there. Just open the window and see. He's a handsome prince." So the princess says whether I should trust the stove or not. So she says, "Okay, okay, I'll just open the window." She opens the window and sees the prince, and the prince sees the princess, and they both fell in love with each other one sight. And then the prince decides, "No, I need to fight with these soldiers." And because he was very brave, he just fought and crossed the moat and went inside. And the king was happy, and they were happily married. And when the prince said, "Okay, now the princess has to come to my place." So the king, he gifted a book to the princess. And that book was a magical book. Whatever if you write on that book will come true. But he said, "Be ready. Don't write anything, because if you write anything, that will come true. So if you write something wrong, that also will come true. So please think over and then write." And then both the prince and the princess just went, and they thanked the frog for his help. And the frog remained in the palace, in the castle. And the prince and the princess went, and on the way, they had many barriers, they had many things to fight. And they kept writing on the book, "Okay, just save us from this, or will give us the power to jump over the river, the big river, and cross the river quickly," and all. And they could do it. And finally they reached, and then they lived happily ever after. So this was the story. So you would have weaved some simple story also. This was a little bigger story. So this is how, including all the characters, all the settings, all the themes and everything, you can weave a story very well. So this is how you use all the elements and you use the story. You weave a story. So this is
There is,
yeah.
I'm sorry. There's one more story given by Ishan, and it's almost similar to the one I have mentioned.
Okay.
But I'd still like to read. It says,
Sure.
it's a short story. In a castle, there was a prince who was not a good one.
Okay.
Then he found a book in which there was a story of a helpful frog and taught him a lesson. And
very good. Very good. At least he has used all the points and then all the elements, and he's tried to be very good. Very good. You should keep weaving. See, the effect of story is very important on everybody. Even not only the kids, the elders also love to listen to the stories. And there are stories, there are many stories. Like when we were young, we were small kids, our parents told us the stories which still we remember. The thirsty crow, it's been coming from ages and ages. Our grandfathers told our parents are telling us, we are telling to our kids. So it's being taken from generations to generations. And yes, the moral of that story is also never to be forgotten. So thirsty crow, the frog and the grapes, the fox and the grapes, and all those stories have the effect. So now stories are now a part of corporate world also, you know. The corporates also have storytelling in their seminars and in their meetings, because they feel it affects more than just giving a lecture and just delivering anything. If you weave a story and tell them, the concept becomes very clear. So I'll just take an example of a word. If I tell a story behind a word, you can never forget that word also. So I'm going to tell you a word. The word is juggernaut. You know that when there was in South, when there was a juggernaut struck the shores, there was a big heading on the Times of India. So there is a story behind this word juggernaut. And since then, I also remember this word, and now you all will also remember the word. So once upon a time, there was an American this sailor who came to India, and he just went to many places and visited India, and he was enjoying. So he happened to go to Puri, Jagannath Puri, and that time was the Rath Yatra time. So साल में एक बार जगन्नाथ भगवान बैठते हैं रथ में, और वो रथ लोग खींचते हैं. You must have seen this. This is a tradition here. So the American, it was very something new for him to watch all these things. So he was like enjoying the scene, and he said, "Okay, wow, the people are pulling the rath and they are pulling the chariot of God and God." But then he saw that people are just jumping in front of the chariot and they are getting killed themselves. So he got like horrified why it is happening. So then he asked somebody, and then they said that this is a myth here, that if you die under the wheels of that chariot, you will attain moksha. So that is why people are getting killed. They are killing themselves under the wheels. And he said, "Oh God, this is such a massive killing. So many people are getting killed at one point of moment, at one moment of time. How can this? This is not good." And he went to America. And then he told his friends, his people, that he has seen what? He has seen such thing. There was a massive killing. There was a huge killing. Many people were dying under that. And when he was asked about the place, he couldn't say Jagannath. He said Juggernaut. So from there, the word Juggernaut came. And that was the meaning of Juggernaut is massive killing. When massive destruction happens, we call it Juggernaut. So there are words which have stories behind them. And you will never, stories, this is the effect of the story, that you will always remember this word. You will now never forget. Even if you tell this story to a 5 years old, he will also remember, and that will create such a good impression that this 5 years knows this big word. So that, because it is the effect of the story that you have given to him. So by story, you have learned so many things, and we learn so many things. So this is what is all about story weaving, and the different story elements. Now, if anybody has any questions, they are welcome. Otherwise, Pooja, I'm done. Thank you. So anybody has any question or any thing that you would like me to tell you about story and storytelling? And this is something very important, just not choosing the right story for the right audience, but the delivery, the way you tell the story also is very, very important. So when you just want your audience to live the story, you
Thank
have
you.
to live the story.
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well. Yes, Pooja, I'm done actually. If there is any question anybody wants to ask, they are most welcome. Otherwise, you tell me if
Ma'am,
it's...
there are less of questions and lot of comments. One question I have is, can you write that word that you were saying? And people are saying, lovely session. Thanks, Vidyadan, and thanks, Ms. Sarkar, for presenting it so lively. And there are, more stories are coming up now, the
Okay.
short ones.
Yeah. So that is the fun of story weaving. You have the quality of weaving the story. You have the quality. You have learned so many stories. So just because you know what are the elements important for the story, and you can weave the stories. Everybody can be a storyteller now.
Sure, ma'am. Yes. Now I'm also going to try. The one that I've tried was, although
No, but that was a good try, Pooja. That was a very good try. But just remember that if you tell this story to a kid, whether he'll be enjoying or not. So no problem. It's not that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was really amazing meeting you and learning from you. Really a great experience. And
Thank you.
this weaving practice was amazing. I loved it. And everybody else also loved it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting
Thank you
me.
so much, ma'am, for giving us the elements and
Mhm.
information about storytelling. Yes, it's really an art and it's a beautiful art. And you are a master of it. So,
Thank you.
saying that, first of all, I'd like to thank you for accepting our invitation to
Anytime.
join the session. And thank you, audience, and thank you to all the storytellers who actually started weaving the story when ma'am gave you 5 elements. So keep practicing with different elements and do write your stories. You can post them on social media and tag Media and Entertainment Skills Council and Vidyadan. So we'll also learn what all you have learned. So show us what you have learned, showcase on social media, and yes, get exciting prizes with your stories and with your lives. So thank you so much. Take care. Have a good day. We are meeting very soon on Monday now. This week is still occupied, so we'll not be coming up with the webinars. But yes, next Monday we'll meet you with photography workshop. By then.
Okay, thank you, Pooja. Thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Nupur, also. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.